I've been producing for more than 8 years. I worked with tens of artists and I've been selling beats online for almost 3 years now. And in the next 14 minutes, I'm gonna tell you how to make your beats sound 7x better and how to make them more appealing to your listeners and the artists you are trying to sell to. So let's just get into it. The tips are put in an order of how you would usually make a beat. Like the first step is the first thing I think you should do. And the last step is the last thing, obviously. So, with that being said, the first tip I have is start with the best ideas. When you start with the thing that you have in mind, like for example, you have drums in your mind, or you have some chord progression, or you saw a cool melody idea and you wanna do that, start with that. Don't focus on starting with the same thing every time, or don't listen to someone who said that you have to start with the melody or you have to start with the drums. Nah, just start with whatever made you wanna create. This way it's gonna be easier to build around it later, because this first thing is really something you wanted to make. For example, I usually start with the melody, but if I have a cool idea for a drum pattern, I'm gonna start with that, because it's gonna be easier for me to build around that drum pattern later than to force myself to make the melody so I can put the drums like that, and you know what I mean. The second step is just sound selection. Your sound selection is one of the most important things if you are trying to make music, because the sounds you choose, the sounds you select, is what makes your track. Your track is a combination of few sounds, so they have to be the best you can find. And sounds you wanna use have to be clean, high quality sounds, like I wrote here. Second of all, they have to fit together well. If you are making an EDM beat, you're gonna use EDM drums, maybe some 909 drums or something newer, but punchy, short, synth, and yeah. So yeah, what I'm trying to say is that your drums should fit the style you're going for and should fit your melodic elements of the beat. And the third thing, your sounds need to be processed well and they have to be high quality, as I said before. Don't use some shitty Reddit drums that have been compressed 100 times and used in tens of drum kits. If you use good sounds, you're genuinely gonna make your job easier, because you're not gonna have to worry so much about mixing them, as they will already sound good. And we're gonna get to that later, but fixing things during the mix is the worst thing you can do. Mix should be creative and easy. It shouldn't be just fixing the sounds you chose before. So keep that in mind. Sound selection is very, very important. And that's also kinda the reason why we started Skeleton Store. We noticed that there's a lack of good sounds for producers who make more underground or electronic music, and we wanted to change that, as we ourselves make electronic underground music. If you also make beats in this style, or if you just want to get some good sounds, check out the first link in the description, and this is gonna help your sound selection a lot. So yeah, you already know how to start making a beat, you already know that you have to choose good sounds. Now let's talk about actual melodies and how to build them. What I always like to do is starting with root notes, because if you get the root notes right, it's really hard to fuck up the rest of the melody, and it's also gonna be easier to build the rest of the melody when you have the root notes ready. So yeah, I'm gonna show you an example. Here I highlighted 4 different parts of this melody with different colors, and the root notes are these red ones. They are basically like the foundation of the melody, bass notes, some people call them like that, or root notes of the chords you use. So when I was making this melody, I started with just this. So I had a nice chord progression going, or just note progression really. And then I added the second layer, which, as you can see, is pretty repetitive. And remember that, because next point is just about that. And it was really easy to build this line of the melody as well as these two, the yellow and blue one, because I already had the root notes and they really set the tone and they are the foundation of the track. If you get the root notes right and they sound good to you and they are catchy, it's hard to fuck up the melody. Oh, and this melody sounds like this. So it's a really simple melody, but we're gonna get to that later, as I said. Because the next point is your melodies lack structure. But I have a good news for you. You don't have to make complex melodies that change every bar and they don't repeat twice in the same track. In most cases, simplicity is actually much better and repetitive melodies work really good. Like, listen to any pop song or any of your favorite songs. They probably have a repetitive melody. But here's the catch. They are repetitive, but they have small slight changes every now and then, like every 2 bars or every 4 bars. And this is how you should structure your melodies for the most part. And for example, in this melody, the main line of the melody, so the green notes, as you can see, are structured like this. We have A part repeated 3 times, and then at the end for the last 2 bars, it has a slight change with these notes, and I called it B. So this is A, B structure. These 6 bars are basically the same. The only thing that changes is the root notes. So we are kinda going back to the previous point of the video. Listen to that closely because no 2 bars sound the same. Like, the root notes just create a different feeling for every time the melody repeats. So yeah, repetitiveness of the melody with chords or just notes changing underneath it is what makes the melody catchy. If you listen to any pop song, basically, they are all built like that. They have very repetitive melody with slight change every 2, 4 or 8 bars. And the only thing that's actually changing are the chords. And the last argument for this, for structuring your melodies like this, is just that our brains like when the melody is repetitive. So yeah, not only is it gonna be way easier to make a repetitive melody, it's also gonna be much better because more people are gonna like that. And if you are trying to sell your beats, it's gonna be easier to rap or sing on them. Okay, and the next point I've already talked about in my sound design video that you can watch here. Layering is what makes you stand out. Basically, layers give your tracks character and a unique vibe. What's the chance that someone is gonna layer the same sounds, the same 2 sounds that you layered? This is how you make your beats more unique, basically. But you need to layer smart, and I've talked about it in the previous video, so if you wanna know more about that. For example, I usually make EDM or like Two Holies inspired music, something like that. If you know how this music sounds, you probably know that I have to use crazy hard synth basses. And I've actually struggled with it for the longest time because I just couldn't find any bass that would feel right for me. One day I just came to a conclusion that maybe I have to layer few sounds. For example, this is how I created a bass for my recent beat. The first layer, which is responsible for the low end of the bass. Second layer, that kinda adds the top and some mid information. And the third layer that adds really this mid frequency character to the bass. On their own, all layers sound like shit because they are EQ'd and they have a lot of effects. But together, they sound like this. So yeah, layer, but do that smart. Don't choose 2 sounds that are virtually the same. Choose sounds that complement each other and work good together to create one bigger sound, like this bass, for example. And also, bonus tip, use this plugin from FL Studio because it allows you to play all the layers you choose with basically one track, one channel. And how to do that? Very simple. Just choose the tracks you want to layer and then click here on Set Children, and you're gonna be able to control all the selected channels via this plugin. Okay, so now we know what sounds to use, we know how to start, we know how to make good melodies, but we also need to make drums work together with the melodies. You probably know this feeling. You made a great ass melody, but the drums just sound like they are from another track, and you can't glue the two things together. And I have two tricks for that. First and foremost, you need to put all the sounds in the same space. Delay and reverb, we all know how they work. They just add space to your sounds or put your sounds in some space. That's basically what they do. So think, why would you use 3 different reverbs in one track? Why would you put different reverb on your snare and different on your synth? Try doing something like that. Have one channel with only reverb on it and mix turned to 100%. And then what you are gonna do is choose every track that you wanna add reverb to and send it to this channel by doing something like that. Here you just adjust the level of how much of the sound you want to send to the reverb channel. And basically do that for every track you have in your project. As you can see on snares, I do it very slightly, like it's 10% or even less. And for some leads, I do more, maybe 25%. So this way, all the elements of the beat play in the same space, but you still have control of how much reverb you want to add to them. And the second trick is just sidechaining. And this is basically how sidechaining can work. But it really depends. You can sidechain your hi-hats to the melody or kick to the bass or whatever, really, whatever you want. What it does though is when one element plays, the second element goes quieter or goes completely mute. This is very useful for mixing kick and bass. And you can do that by using some limiter or compressor, but I usually do that using this great plugin from FL Studio called Fruity Peak Controller. For this example, listen closely because when the kick plays, the bass goes quieter. Listen to that. This plugin, the peak controller, is put on the kick, and here you just adjust the bass level of the thing you want to sidechain. So in my example, it's 80% because this is the default volume of Fruity Balance. Here you adjust how much you want to make the element you are sidechaining to quieter. And these two just set to your own liking. This is how long the sidechain should last. This Fruity Balance is put on the bass. And here you just right click, link to controller, and you choose the peak controller you put on the kick, and you choose the peak parameter. And you can even visually see what is happening when the two elements play together. Every time the kick hits, the volume of the bass goes down. This pumping effect is what you really often use in EDM. And it's also how you make your bass and kick hit hard while at the same time leaving some headroom for the mastering. While we are already talking about mixing, this is the last point of the video. Do not overmix. You've probably seen some big sessions with your favorite artists on YouTube, or you've been to studio sessions before and you saw that they use a lot of effects and they do a lot mixing. But the truth is, if you make beats using VSTs, synths and pre-processed drum samples, you don't need to mix much, because almost all presets in synths you use are already mixed and they already sound good. Same goes for drums. They are already mixed and processed by the person who made the sample. You don't have any reason to over compress the sounds and do some crazy mixing tricks. The only thing you really have to do is use good, high quality, clean sounds, as I wrote here. If you get step 2 right, you don't have to worry about mixing. So your mixing should really be just some EQing, basic compression and creative effects. That's also why sound selection is so important, so you can focus on mixing instead of fixing. So yeah, those were my tips on how to make your beats sound better. If you learned something from this video, click the like button below and subscribe, because I'm gonna be making more videos of this kind in the future. And also, don't forget about the step 2, so sound selection. First link in the description, the best underground electronic sound kits in the game, Skeleton Store. And yeah, that's all I have to say today. Keep making music, keep creating, and keep getting better. See you in the next video.